Here to talk defects today. Definitely something that's important to probably many people in the audience, because when we think about defects in any manufacturing industry, and there are ways to think about defects even outside of manufacturing, but we'll just kind of stay manufacturing focused today. But if we think about defects, they really result in a sunk cost. We want to avoid them at all costs. In our session today, I'll explore some useful approaches to modeling defect count data. Semiconductor processes are time-consuming and costly. Defects can have negative impacts on production processes and profitability. They can also negatively affect a company's reputation if those defects escape inspection and find their way into devices. So learning to leverage defect count data effectively can have some pretty big upside advantages. Now, the case study I'm sharing is about optimizing a semiconductor process to minimize defect counts. The story should translate well to many circumstances where count type data are used to develop statistical models that you might use to improve a process in any industry or any business circumstance. So there should be something useful for everyone in the audience. A big part of the message will be to understand how standard least squares regression can fail when modeling count type response data. Standard least squares regression is a familiar tool from the poll in the beginning. It sounds like many people are using it. Now, why do we use it? Well, it's easy to explain and relatively easy to do. So it is often our go-to for building statistical models. And when all the assumptions are met, it is a great tool. When the assumptions are not met, well, it's good to have other tools in the tool chest and know when and how to use them. All right, so we will explore today approaches that will lead to useful models like the profiler on top, and learn to avoid approaches that give us inaccurate results like the profiler on the bottom, where the statistical model is predicting a negative average defect count. That just does not make sense. And for those of you who are brand new to the prediction profiler, it's a visualization of the statistical model or the equation that we developed from our data. So the prediction profiler allows us to play what-ifs scenarios with process parameters and look at what we expect for our business outcomes. So today, again, we're going to be sticking with defect counts. We will be working in the fit model platform, so analyze fit model. And we'll explore standard least squares personality, which is available in both JMP and JMP Pro, and the generalized regression personality that is available in JMP Pro. So anytime I'm talking about generalized regression, we're looking at some of those reports. That's a JMP Pro feature, part of the fit model platform, and standard least squares, again, is available to everybody. All right, so let's dive into the case study. So today, I'm going to ask everybody to pretend that we're all process engineers and tasked with reducing scratch defects from a CMP process. So it's basically polishing a wafer to either flatten or remove material from the semiconductor manufacturing process. So from experience and physical understanding of the process, we believe that slurry, so it's kind of the grittiness of the slurry that's used in polishing, the pad that kind of holds the slurry and moves it across the wafer, as well as the slurry flow rate and polishing time are all variables that have an impact on scratch defects. We go out and gather a month's worth of data and settle in to build a statistical model. So we have 600 rows of data, and we want to build a statistical model. So again, what's in our mind at this point, and again, I'm going to assume that we've done a little bit of cleaning and prep here, and we're actually ready to begin the statistical modeling process. But what's in our mind here right now could be two things. One, it could be, help me understand how this process is behaving. Another thing that we may have in mind is, if I understand how the process is behaving, can I get clues on how I can improve it? And that's where we'll kind of begin our investigation today. Now, if we start with fit model and we're in the least squares platform, we get a least squares report. So let's just start there and talk through what's happened. For those brand new, I noticed there are a few brand new to regression. So what's happening behind the scenes is that we have some polynomial equation that we pre-specified. Those 600 rows of data that we've collected across multiple process variables have been used to determine coefficients for the terms in that polynomial equation. That equation is the thing that we're visualizing here in the prediction profiler. That equation is really nice for us to have, because we have 600 observations of data, but we may be interested in aspects of our process that maybe we hadn't collected data for. So there are a lot of reasons why we would build a statistical model. So here we are. We landed at our go-to tried and true standard least squares regression. We asked the JMP prediction profiler to say, give me the process settings that minimize defect counts. And as we saw when we kicked things off, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. A negative defect is really going to trigger some alarm bells with me, and I'm starting to not really trust the model too well. So we have a diagnostics that are very useful in understanding whether we can or want to trust our regression models. So let's look at a couple of those and talk through what we're seeing. So the actual by predicted plot. What we expect to see here is an even spread of points on either side of that diagonal. And do we see that? Nah, not really, especially not for, oops, I'm grabbing the wrong handle here, especially not for low defects. We have some clustering, we have a shelf here. The residual by predicted plot should be a very nice random scatter on either side of 0. And it's not. We have a little bit of a shelf. We essentially have a pattern here. We expect no pattern, and we have a pattern. There's enough going on in between the behavior of the prediction profiler and the diagnostics to cause us to maybe ask the question, is there a better way to go about this? Maybe as we try to answer that question, let's talk a little bit about some of the assumptions that need to be met in order for this standard least squares regression process to work. Standard least squares regression expects response variation like the CVD film thickness measurements that I showed in the mastering session 2 weeks ago. In the CVD example, we observed film thickness measurements, that's chemical vapor deposition, that were reasonably symmetric on either side of a target, like the normal distribution graph on the right. Now, for a center is best type of process variable, like deposition thickness, the distribution on the right would be indicative of a process that's stable and running on target if we were just collecting, real-time observational data. Another important thing to keep in mind with continuous measurement metrics like this, the variation and the shape of the distribution tends to be a result of only one mechanism. It's very common to think about it in that way. Shape may be different for different mechanisms, but it tends to be a single mechanism. A defect count quality metric differs in several different ways. So first off, defects are counted as integer values from 0 on up. So we can't have negative defects. That makes no sense. For many types of defects, we expect most observations to be 0 or near 0, like the skewed right distribution graph that I'm kind of pointing to right now. In standard least squares, we regress that regression thing. That's a mathematical process, and we regress to the mean. And in circumstances like count data, the mean is a very poor measure of central tendency for skewed data like defect counts. So if you're thinking back to those diagnostic plots, that's probably the problem that those diagnostic plots are picking up. Now, what's more, different defect count levels may associate with different failure mechanisms. So some of these high values could be a different mechanism. Low values could be, something that generates a onesie twosie type defect scenario. Those are still important because, man, semiconductor processes are long and very expensive. So we need to be able to model that full range. And if we're looking to optimize a process, we better be able to use the model to find settings that will drive us to zero defects. Really, we do not think about defects in the same way we would quality measures like deposition film thickness. For defect counts, we aim to minimize, just bring it to zero ideally. And that's different than aiming to achieve a target deposition thickness with minimum variation. So bottom line, both the way that the data are used and the mechanisms behind the data are very different. So it makes sense that we should be taking a different approach with our models. So what are some better options? Now, I'm going to stick within, kind of the regression family of strategies for this session. We're going to kind of focus on generalized regression. Same as before, just pointing out the model effects, constructing a response surface model. What I want to point out front in the launch is that generalized regression, personality, and fit model gives us different tools right at our fingertips to help deal with some of these problems. For instance, in GenReg, we can specify a distribution for our response variable. And there are many options to include a handful that work quite well for count type data like negative binomial and Poisson. Negative binomial models, simple way of putting it, in fact, I just stole this right from the documentation, is they model the number of successes before a specified number of failures. Poisson models the number of events in a given interval and is often expressed as count data. Both of these strategies work. I think my collaborator behind the kind of the data set and the story here, kind of we batted around that Poisson's probably one that kind of surfaces and is used quite a lot. Also, if we have more than 50% zeros in our data, I think I have somewhere around 400 zero levels. So I have a high amount of zeros in the data. Excuse me, let me get back to the fit model. So when you have circumstances where you have a lot of zeros, you can apply a zero inflation parameter and maybe milk a little bit more performance out of the model. So for this exercise, let's take a look at the common ones. So Poisson, negative binomial, and the zero inflated versions. And we'll do a comparison between those and standard least squares.